Hello everybody, how are you? Hopefully everyone's having a good day. I'm so nervous right now. I've never been more nervous in my life. I teach every month, or I have for the last 4 or 5 months as an instructor at MasterControl, but I've never taught people who used to be my TAN customers, a couple of them in here, and people that I've taught before, so now I'm all nervous, I'm gonna faint. No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully we can get through it, and hopefully we have some valuable information to share. When you're talking about best practices in the system, there's so many things that you can choose from when you're choosing TAN. So I kind of approached this a little differently. I approached it things that, yeah, you have to do within your system on a regular basis to, maintain your system. But I also chose a few things that you could preemptively configure to hopefully cut down on your maintenance down the road. And some of these are things we teach at a very basic level, and other things, are more in depth and more detailed. Before I really get into this, I'm actually going to use this thing, I think, if it works. Let's find out. Let's see here. There we go. I want to find out kind of where we are version-wise in the room. So, well, and also, how many of you are system administrators in your system? Okay, so this truly is a sysadmin class. That's great. Anyone on a version older than 9? Okay, any 9 versions? 10s, sure there's a lot, and 11s. Okay, so a fair amount between 10 and 11. And are any people in here brand new to MasterControl? Just a couple, okay. So that makes me even more nervous. Did I prepare the right material? We'll find out. So today we're just going to talk about a wide range of topics, areas that I think you can really focus, again, to cut down on some of that maintenance, and ways to make it a little bit easier on yourself. Before I forget, I have a big pile of handouts you can take. These are available on the customer website as well. But these are basically a recommended maintenance schedule. Everywhere from something you can do every week to something you could do every quarter and biannually. So feel free to grab these before you leave. I'll move them to the back of the room when the session's done. One other question too, how many are staying for both parts of this? Okay, so I've prepared it so that we're going to go through about 5 to begin with, and then when we come back from break, we'll do the rest of the suggestions. Okay? So to start it off, we need to rediscuss what the role of a system administrator truly is. Okay, there's a lot of things that a system administrator needs to do up front. Before you go live, you have to go through, gather all the requirements of your system. You have to work with all the departments within your company so that everybody's happy. You have to be the champion for MasterControl within your organization so that people are happy about it and not disgruntled because you have to use this new thing that's difficult or this old thing that used to not work very well and hopefully works better in the new version. But you have to gather all those requirements, which is a huge job up front. You have to configure your system to meet those requirements again so people stay happy. Educating end users is key because it not only helps them to like the system, but it cuts down your maintenance. To me, a regular call from a user, you can depend on once a week this guy's going to call and say, I can't do this or this doesn't work. That's a maintenance issue. That is you having to help somebody with the system, and it becomes a maintenance task almost. So educating those users, those sub-administrators, even the view-only users how to use the system is key. You're responsible to help implement and validate your system and get it ready to go live. And then after it goes live, you have to continue to ensure that it's used properly and maintain that system. This is a very underused part of MasterControl, I found. I was in support for 2 years, and oftentimes I'd say, well, did you check the help menu? And most people are like, oh, no, I didn't think of that. This thing has so many answers in it. Get used to using it if you're not already. Okay, I'm sure some of the The regular users, the ones that have been with MasterControl forever, probably utilize this quite frequently, while other people don't even realize that a system administrator manual exists underneath the appendix portion of the help menu. Use that as part of your regular routine within MasterControl, and it will help hopefully cut down some of your support calls, some of the exploration you have to do in your test system. It's there. It doesn't have all the answers, but there's a lot of good information in the help menu. We're going to talk about, as we go through today, a little bit about some of the automated things you can do to cut down the maintenance in your system. Again, back in support, a lot of the calls we would get is because of misconfiguration. It's because stuff was not set up right to begin with, and so they call in and say, okay, I'm getting ready to redo this. Where do I start? Well, you got a big job ahead of you. Maybe you need a consultant to help with that. It can become huge, but if you can take some of these automated things that are available in your system and put them to use, it should help a lot. Some of the things we'll talk about are info card types and all the automation that goes into an info card type. Scheduled reports, scheduled tasks, and then using organizers in a dynamic way. There are reasons to use a static organizer, but most of them should be pretty dynamic and update for you. Okay, so number one that I'm going to talk about, these are in no specific order. I can say this is the very best one or the very worst one of the 10. This is just one of the 10. Is keeping the user accounts to a minimum in your system. I frequently talk to customers and they say something like, I have my account, then I have sub-admin role, and then I can log in as sysadmin, but then I created this other account that acts more like a doc admin role, and they maybe have one or two other accounts that they're logging in frequently with. Okay, that shouldn't rarely ever happen. There's really no need to do that. If your roles and your user accounts are configured correctly, you shouldn't need additional logins for a single user, ever. We also get very, very frequently, in fact, I taught an all-day class yesterday, and one of the questions I got was, this user left the company 8 months ago, they were a sysadmin, and they're still getting tasks today. They still have tasks from 8 months ago. What do I do to clean up all those tasks? Okay? Where used should be second nature. Does everyone use where used? Does anyone not know what where used is or what it does? You don't have to raise your hand. I know there are at least two. Okay, so where used is going to be the option where you can go in, you can find the user, bring up a list of everywhere they're found in MasterControl and what they're on. If they're on a task, it will list all the tasks. This is by no means a perfect method because, yeah, do we need to assign one user for every one of their tasks? If they have 100, it's probably supposed to go to 50 different users, but at least you can give it to a live person now if they're out of the system. Okay, where use will replace them from their roles. It will replace them in all sorts of areas in MasterControl, so you don't have to go do as much maintenance with this user. So get familiar with where used if you don't already use it. And use it more if you don't already use it enough. Remove users from their roles. Okay, this will help the system not send them tasks. Even if they're a disabled user, if they're still attached to roles in the system, you can expect that if those roles are receiving tasks, they're going to continue to receive tasks. The system's not perfect, so remove them from all the roles, except for one. Does anybody in here use a disabled user role? Can someone tell me why you use a disabled user role? Please.
I actually don't know. I got instructions from MasterControl.
Just cause. That's a perfect answer.
To create a user
Okay.
disabled role.
That's great.
So I
What right? Do you know what right that has? Has to have a
I think
right.
it has one right.
No, my recent right, probably.
That's what it was.
Okay. Why do you use it?
Because if there are no roles whatsoever, you can only see that account as you're logged in as sysadmin.
Exactly. So if you're a system administrator, you will always be able to see their account if they're not in a role. But should you be using the sysadmin account to do your job? Not very often. We'll discuss some scenarios here in just a few minutes where, yes, you do need to. But really, you should be able to do 99% of your job as you, as a sub-administrator in the system. And if you're logging in every single day as sysadmin to do your job, you probably don't have your role configured correctly, or you don't understand you already have those rights. So the disabled user role will help prevent that disappearing user if you have users other than sysadmin managing your user accounts. They'll be able to see the users still. So when Jenny leaves because she won the lottery, and she goes and blows all her money, and then she comes and wants her job back, her account is still there. You can add her back into other roles without having to log into sysadmin. Support gets calls frequently where they call in and say, you know, I can't find this user in the system, and it's because of that. Okay, do they have a role? Well, they used to. I don't know. Let's check. And sure enough, they don't have a role. And it was an easy enough solution, but they wasted hours looking for this user and trying to figure out why they disappeared. So for security's sake, we should be locking their account. So we've removed them from their roles or added them to a disabled user role. Lock their account so no matter what, they can't get into the system. It's just a security measure. And then, how many people, when somebody leaves the company, they just delete their account? They're gone, X amount, I don't want to see them anymore. I hope nobody. Because there's valuable information that lies with that user, and if they do come back and you've disabled their account, they're gone. Okay. But for you, they're gone. So, what's that?
If you delete it.
If you delete that, yes. So yeah, you want to use that disabled user account. Sorry if I misspoke. So if you delete their account, they're gone. If you disable them, they're still on the list. You can recover them. If they're not in a role, you have to go into sysadmin. Please.
If their account is disabled, what's the purpose of blocking their account? If their account is disabled, can they still get into the system?
They shouldn't be able to, but it's just an additional security measure.
Okay.
I mean, it's easy enough. You're in there, you go remove them from their roles, lock their account, and you're done. So no, they shouldn't be able to, but again, another security step. Okay? And then, of course, we've all had the ghost training, if you've been around at all. We've disabled this user, we've archived their info card, their training info card, yet they're still getting some training sent out to them. It happens. I mean, I don't know, I'm not in support anymore. I don't know with version 11 if that's improved. I haven't heard too much about it. But archive their info card, remove them from all of their job codes or their association to courses, and then you're done. That is a good list of things to do to manage your user accounts. Please.
What about an individual that changes their name?
So in version 11, you can change their name with them.
I heard that.
Okay?
Just one.
I heard one.
I think it's continual. So, but the only problem with that is I changed my name. I don't know why. I changed my
You
name.
got married.
I got married. I changed my name. It was J. Franz. Now it's J. Barney. And then I get a divorce and I want to go back to J. Franz. I can't. J. Franz is forever gone, but it's always going to be linked to whatever you set their new account name to. Okay. So does that answer your question?
No, because I'm in 10.
That answers your question in 11. If you want to change their name in 10, I'm sorry.
That's what I heard.
No, be excited for 11 for that reason. Please.
We have stable users, but they still show up under your user list.
Yes, they will.
Is that wrong, or is that just how you guys have to play?
If you've disabled the user and they're in a role, they'll always show up for whoever has access to see that list.
So like on your card, where you're looking at available owners, and you've always disabled people kind of on your list. That's just how it's supposed to be.
No, you should be removing them from all of those spots. Should replace them so they're no longer a supervisor. You should be taking them out of their roles. So if we'll talk about setting roles up on routes in a minute. But
When you go to add, you click that plus, and it brings that user.
oh yeah,
She's just seeing
All the archive.
interesting. I've never noticed that. Does anyone else see that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure on that. Sorry, I don't have an answer for you.
We just put ZZ at the beginning of their first and last
Oh,
name, and it moves them to the bottom of the list.
Okay.
So we
I mean, their user ID is still the same, we just put ZZ at the beginning of their first and last name.
That's not a bad idea. Way to think outside the box. All right, so let's go on from user list, and let's talk about roles and rights. Roles and rights is, again, it's another big topic. When people call in, they say, you know, we've sent the training to this person, they can't see there's no PDF icon. Or, you know, so-and-so has the same role as other so-and-so, yet this one can see it and that one can't. Okay, let's talk a little bit about roles. Okay, roles and rights are additive. If one person's in 3 roles, they get all of their rights based on all 3 of those roles. And if someone else is in one of those exact same roles, they wouldn't have the same rights because this one has more because of their additional roles. Okay, so roles are additive. Keep that in mind when you're creating them. You shouldn't, to make your system a little easier to manage, I hope you're not creating a role per person. That's easy when you're in a small company, and it happens a lot. So we'll just create a role that fits that user, these 5 users, and a role to do those couple of users. It may be needed once in a while, but typically you should be setting your roles up based on their job within the company. So if support has 26 guys, they can all be added to their support role, and they all get the same rights. There's going to be a few that maybe are a support manager, and there's an additional role with that, and they get a few extra rights from that. But we shouldn't be creating roles where you're always having to manage and guess how they're configured because everyone's set up differently. Did you need a seat? We have one right up front, a couple of them. Both of you, we have a couple of them. Okay. Sorry. I do want to talk about the difference between rights-based roles and non-rights-based signature roles. Does anybody use non-rights-based signature roles? Please, not everyone at once.
What is that?
Okay, let's talk about it. Okay, so you have a job in your company. In your job you have certain responsibilities. Okay, this is not in MasterControl. You are the manager of X department. You have to do, you know, this task, this task, this task is part of your job. Okay, then you have what you need in MasterControl. What do I need to see? What do I need to do in MasterControl? Okay, there's this area right here that is where we would consider a non-rights-based signature role. This is an area where you would create a job for maybe somebody on a document review board or somebody in a department manager role. And in that non-rights-based role, they're given one right. And that right is my recent. It doesn't really give them any additional rights in the system. You just have to because it's a role. But within that, you would assign that role in spots on a route or in other spots in the system, maybe a document owner, an author, where these people would be placed into those spots based on their role instead of their name. Then when that person leaves the company and the new person comes in, you put them in all the same roles, and you didn't have to go switch out and change your routes around. You didn't have to update info cards. You didn't really have to do anything but remove them from their role. So this area, this non-rights-based signature role, which if I were creating a document admin role, let's say that coordinates with the person in the document review board. I would give every one of their rights that they need right here. I would then create the secondary role that would be placed on a route to a smaller group of people. There may be a couple of people in that versus 10 people in the rights-based role. And that way they can do their job through their role instead of assigning them by name in the system. They're not necessarily the same people. So let's go back to support. Support has, what, 35 people on now? Okay, if they're all in the same role, but there's only a select few of them, maybe a couple of team leads that actually manage their documents for them, they're kind of on this document review board for support, they would get their rights from their role, which everybody has, 50 users, 35 users in that role. And 3 of them are now in this secondary non-rights-based role. They get every right in the system from there. They're added to their job role, and that job role is placed on routes. And now those users are the only ones that are getting the tasks. That's why there would be an additional role created. This is now a recommended best practice for MasterControl, is using these non-rights-based signature roles where you're putting people in to do a job. We also recommend using roles as document owners and document authors. You don't have to, but it's a recommendation of strong. Yes.
When we split it up, I mean, it's exactly the way you're first. But we call the one in the first column, we call those system and security roles.
Okay.
And we call the other ones documents.
Exactly. That's a great. Yeah. That's a good explanation of it. Yes, please.
So we use,
You're not allowed to ask questions. We'll go over this on Friday. Just kidding. Go ahead.
so we use rules to assign training as well, and I know I
Mhm.
always hear, you know, use rules to assign training, don't assign it because they're training. For the most part, most things fit the role. We'll have a handful of courses that don't necessarily fit into the job code. We go, okay, we just need this person to train on this course.
Sure.
Is there any harm in doing it? I hear all the time we're not supposed to
No.
assign courses that way, but I've never watched.
So there's really a new recommendation. So for a very long time, we thought the best option, and I'm not a trainer, so I can't go into a lot of detail on this, but it used to be that we encouraged you strongly to use job code, roll the job code to course. And now it's kind of open where you can use roll the job code to course, or you could use trainee to job code to course instead. So that's very much accepted. Or if it doesn't require a job code, there's going to be those one-offs. I mean, there's always going to be one-offs where you're going to have to create a role for some specific person because they don't quite fit. They need a few extra rights. You know, it's going to happen. But for the most part, you should try and stick with a very standard for maintenance purposes. Yeah, it's not going to hurt anything. It's just harder to maintain, right? It's maintaining the system.
Something different, where if the document revised, they wouldn't be privy to that training unless it resided in the job. So that may be the version that's so that's why we were told not to.
We definitely don't have that issue with people designing here.
Yeah, it should behave the same way because that job code all it's doing is a linking. It's not going to affect how it re-triggers training.
So I'd like to add a third tier to that.
Okay.
As it relates to job codes in our organization only have to do with training assignments. We disconnected, originally we were configured that way, roll to job code, but it's an extra maintenance to when you're deactivating someone, you have to remove the role and the job code. And so, because they're connected together, they do point to each other in the way that we were originally configured. We started this 3 years ago. We re-engineered and we disconnected. We did system security, we did the route roles, and we saved the job codes primarily for training assignments. And that's the way we've been instructed to do it today.
Yeah, and that's how they'll teach it now. If you had a configuration consultant come out and help you out, they would recommend users to job code too.
Use best practice because we've had the system for 7 years and we had huge issues because we were like, oh, it works, let's just do it. And then several upgrades later, and that we had a huge project to just go on in and everything that should have done.
So there's a lot of learning. I mean, MasterControl is by no means perfect either. We come up with something, and over time we see how it affects long term, and sometimes we have to modify best practice. So. Okay, so let's go. Maybe we've talked about this. Let's find out. Yeah, so just a few tips. You know, keeping right space and non-right space roles separate if you can. Use roles wherever possible in the system. Certain roles in the system require a separate role to be created for them. And those are delete info card, and that one's not quite as severe, but the certified password and the login as system administrator right, those should be held somewhat tightly to you. Not every system admin or sub-admin in the system should be able to log in as sysadmin. There should be a select few that can. Certified password right, you want to make sure you're giving that to a select group of people, but maybe not every one of your sub-admins or document administrators in the system. So we recommend creating a role called login as sysadmin and give it one right, and it's that one right there. It's a coveted, highly secure role. And then again with the certified password, a group of people that can help change passwords where needed, but it has its own place in the system. That's an easy one to modify if you have it set up different, but it's just for security purposes. Like we were talking about before, creating these non-rights-based roles can be assigned as a route owner, and that way you're not having to go in and change people out. And as giving them the start task right. If they're in those roles, they'll have the right. If they're not, you don't have to worry about it. But you don't have to come in here and modify these all the time and say, okay, John Johnson left, so now we have to put in Timothy. Okay, whatever. And the same thing on routes. Try and use roles wherever possible. And those non-rights-based signature roles would be the ones to use. To where instead of having users listed here, you actually have roles. And they go to those users. It can be one user in that non-rights-based role. But it's going to them to do their job. Whoever's in that role, they're now in that spot in the route. Okay, I mentioned earlier that you should be able to do 95-ish% of your job as yourself if you're a sub-admin. You shouldn't be logging in, oh, this guy needs this done, so I'm going to hop in as sysadmin and take care of that. Don't follow support's example. They'll always want to log in as sysadmin to make sure we have all the rights, but that's beside the point. So you should be able to log in as yourself, have the rights that you should have to do your job. Except, any time you need to abort a system-generated task, it has to be done as system administrator. So training tasks, review tasks, and revision tasks. You'll have to log in as sysadmin. The default owner of all routes and roles is sysadmin until you add users in there. Delete other users, custom reports, and virtual folders from the system. Must be done as sysadmin. Save over a standard report in the system. Log in when all licenses are consumed. Anyone ever have to do that as sysadmin? I bet Kate does. I used to get a call from Kate like every Monday. Oh, I forgot to change the logout time. Session timeout, can you help me? So you're going to have to log in as sysadmin if all your licenses are consumed to kick people out of the system. Manage your license as well. Make admin page changes. Typically those will be done with support on the line, but you would need to do that as sysadmin. Be notified when the user exceeds the login attempts. How's that done? Sysadmin gets an email, right? Who's on that email? Do you guys set up just one person as that you put in your email as sysadmin? Okay. It's a good idea to have your IT create you a group email and use that so that your sub-admins will get that email and they can help you out when you're out of the office sick or you're on vacation. If you have other people you can rely on, that's an easy task to set up a little group email. And then find users with no role. We've already discussed how they disappear from the system. Yes, please.
I've often had to log in as full sysadmin because I can't see all the roles on my regular sysadmin.
So yeah, if you do not have a role or a right, or you're not assigned to if a role has exceeded rights than what you have, you will not be able to see it or add it to other people.
Except like choose me.
So you may want to talk to support about it, because if you have every right in the system, you should be able to see everything. Yeah. One up here. Sorry, she was up first.
How do you get the email about logging in? Because I like just went live with training.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to know how to log in anymore. So I just like daily go to the user accounts and unlock people because they just like it's becoming my routine every morning. I go in.
So you'll set that up in the settings area under login attempts, under password, home and login pages, and then you'll set up how many attempts they get, and if you want to notify sysadmin, and then you put the email in under the sysadmin's user profile.
So that would be my email for the sysadmin.
If you want it to just go to you, yes. If you want it to go to a group, if you set up a group email. Sorry.
So I was wondering about the first one about the training.
Yep, this one.
Why is that if you had login as sysadmin right, why couldn't you just do it?
You could log in. If you have that right and you log in as sysadmin, you'd be able to see it because you have all those rights.
Why do you have to log in?
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you why they set the system up like this.
That's the reason I go in.
It's because it's a system-generated task. That might be a great user enhancement to put on the user voice to update that, and maybe you'll get a response saying, this is why. I don't see any logical reason why that can't be added. Yes?
But when you log in as sysadmin, doesn't it use your actual user ID in the audit logs?
Yeah, so you would have sysadmin, Franz, and my password to get into the system. But it still gives me sysadmin rights.
So but you're still yourself, you're just with all his
Well,
rights.
your sysadmin, it's just traceable back to you, essentially.
Sorry, one more thing about that.
Yes.
Can sysadmin, if we're LDAP to our Active Directory,
Mhm.
can
Yeah, so it would just be outside in your Outlook, in your email system, you would set up that email. Yeah, you'd have that email, and then you'd all be part of that email. Yeah. Okay, any other questions on this little slide? Okay.
Melissa, I think that maybe it's fixed in the version,
I hadn't heard that. I wonder if that. Yeah, I think it was an issue in 11.0 and 11.1, but I think in 11.3 I've been able to do it. Okay, so ta-da, fixed. Okay, so there's a lot of reports in the system that you can use to help manage your users, and that you can use to help manage your roles. Utilize these. We're going to talk towards the end, and like I said, I have this maintenance recommendation sheet up here. But a lot of these reports that are available in the system, you can modify those to fit your needs. If you're looking for specific users or specific vaults, whatever that is. But these are awesome to schedule on a regular basis so that you get a report that reminds you to check some things out, but it also will update you on the status of your users in your system. Okay, so one of these, users by role. I'm sure you've all used this to some extent, but there's probably some that really haven't delved into the report aspect yet. Or they've given up because they didn't come out the way they wanted the first time. But there's a ton of options for reports. They're all canned. However, there's, like I said, you can combine these into an Excel spreadsheet. You can do a lot of different things with them, but a lot of them are very helpful right out of the box. So I'm going to pull up. Okay, so this specific report list, all of these reports come from portal reports. And we wanted to look at the users by role report. Such a simple little report, but it can actually help you, again, if this is scheduled on a regular basis where you just get an email and here it is, to remember to check some of these things. So if we go into this report, you could set up a filter. Well, you can set up your, obviously, manage your columns, put the ones in that you need. But you can also set up a filter that would allow you to check different roles out, to find out, you get that situation where somebody says, oh, this person in my department can see this document, this person, I can't. We have the exact same role. Why? You can come in here and do a quick comparison and see why one user has some rights and why the other one don't. And usually you're going to find out they have some additional roles somewhere. But this is a highly valuable report you can schedule, have it come to you every 90 days to check your system and make sure that you're up to date on your user accounts. Has everyone here been through training with MasterControl besides at Summit? There's a lot. You should, if you have access to a lot of customer reference materials on mastercontrolcustomers.com, and one of those customer reference materials is a list of reports that you can create quickly. I think they typically are about 10 of the reports in the system, and it shows you how to customize those. And they're the most useful reports that have been reported back to us, so we've made those available on how to build those. So find those on the customer website. Okay? But this is a highly valuable report along with all the others when you get those issues of, this guy has way too many rights. Why? Pull up the vault rights by user and see why they're getting into so many things and ruining stuff. Okay? Larry! Okay, so let's go back to okay, a lot of reports available. Okay, wow, we're only number 3. I've only got 5 minutes left. I'm glad you guys are mostly staying. Okay, I want to get through 5 here in the next 5 minutes. These are quick though. This was a huge problem in 10. So anyone on 10 and below, this is a big problem. Where you go to launch, you grab a document info card, you go to send it on a route, and all of a sudden it pops up the red wink that says, this is already linked to another task. Well, it's not locked. What's going on? What's going on?
It's sitting.
It's sitting there in your start task list because somebody aborted it and it didn't get deleted out of the system. It's a 2-step process in versions 10 and lower. So remember, when you abort a task in 10 or lower, go in here to your start task list and delete it out. Yes?
Is it critical that you remove the documents from the packet? I was told that.
No, because it will remove it from the packet when it's deleted.
It will actually.
Yeah, it won't delete the info card, but it will delete the association between it and the packet.
So you don't have to do that in 11?
Nope, so in 11, you hit abort, and there's a little pop-up box at the bottom that's already pre-selected that says delete the packet. You can deselect it if you don't want to delete it, if you think it might have to go out again. But it's pre-selected, you hit OK, and it deletes it out of this. But what other problems have you guys faced with this?
The problem I face with it is that the system administrator has to abort it, but the document author or whoever launched the route can delete that. They don't know that they can't.
Yeah, so they can.
Doing this 2-step.
Yeah, and there's other people that can abort it too if they have the rights.
Right.
But the other problem that you're going to have is people set up a packet, never launch it, because they hit save instead of launch, and they don't even realize it never went out. That's a big thing.
It's huge at this.
Yes. So this should be a scheduled report you receive regularly that you can get an update on your in-process tasks, how long it's taking, and then also checking this for some deleted packets. Sorry, aborted packets. Okay? So one option that people have in the system that have the ability to run reports is to save reports. Highly valuable. It's highly valuable for you. It's highly valuable for the people that need those reports. But there's a lot of junk in here. There's a lot of people that will come in here, run a report that's not dynamic. It's just a static report. It's only good this week. And then they save it. It's awesome. It's awesome this week. But those add up. People leave. There's big users that come in here and have really great reports, but they leave, and then they never get used again. The only person that can change this and delete their reports is sysadmins. So this should be a regularly scheduled job that you do as a system administrator. Okay?
How do you know if people are using it or not?
You'd want to check with them if they're still at your company. Okay? I'm going to quickly talk about, actually I'm not. Most of you are coming back for the next session. We're going to talk about a big portion of it being publishing issues. Okay? For now, this half, I don't know why, we want you to take a survey. We love surveys, we love feedback. Can you please take a survey? Let me know how I did. There's papers at your table. I would love to go to Amsterdam, so you really love me. No doubt in your mind, this is the best class you've ever had. But you can also access the link. It's just the regular Thursday or Tuesday link, not Thursday. Don't go there.